Hello and welcome to Catholic Life. I'm your host, John Buckrees, and today I have a very interesting program that I think you should all be very interested in hearing everything that we have to say. So you better get a pad and pencil and paper out, because we're going to talk about the history of Fairfax Memorial Park and what it's all about. And my guest today with me is Ron Jones. Thank you for coming on, and I understand you're the pre-planning specialist. Then Father Hasek from St. Mary's Parish out there where Father Hathaway is, right?
That's right.
Yes, and welcome to the show. And Karen, welcome to the show.
Thank you.
And
Thank
you
you.
are the Family Service Counselor, Fairfax Memorial Park.
I am.
Sounds like you got a great show coming up here, folks. Let's take 30 seconds out for a commercial. When we come back, pay attention. It's going to be a good one. The funding for this program was made possible by a grant from Fairfax Memorial Park, family owned since 1957. Fairfax Memorial Park serves all, providing you a choice of family crypts, mausoleums, and columbariums. On 128 acres, there are 12 beautiful memorial gardens. The vision for Fairfax Memorial Park is family first, plan ahead, and give great service. For more information, their number to call is 703-323-5202. Hello, folks. If you just tuned in, you're watching a program called Catholic Life, and I'm your host, John Buckrees. And what is our program all about today? It's about, well, we all have to talk about it sometime or another, but we're all going to have to pass away eventually. And where are we going to be buried? How are we going to handle it? Well, that's why I invited Fairfax Memorial Park, and they're going to tell you the whole history of that park and all about the situation. So I'm going to turn my show right over to my guests here, Ron and Father and Karen. Let's talk about it.
John, we really want to thank you for the opportunity to be able to come and talk. Talking about death is not easy. We understand that. And for some of us, we've done this on a daily basis, so we take for granted sometimes about talking about death. But we thought it might be helpful to talk about the importance of burial, and maybe a little bit talk about the history of Fairfax Memorial Park, a local park that is originally a Catholic cemetery. And then also talk about what many of us go through, reducing the stress in your daily life.
Now, when I was a little fellow, the funerals used to be in the home, in the living room. They would lay them out and all, there was a big black wreath on the door, but not anymore. It's all changed. Well, then tell us all about that then.
Well, welcome, Father Hasek.
Thank you
For joining us. Father Hasek is serving St. Mary's Catholic Church in Old Town. And tell us what the Catholic Church teaches about burials.
Well, years ago, Catholics would be buried only in the Catholic cemetery. Some things have changed, especially since Vatican II. Most of those things are the preference of the need for a vigil for the respect of the body before the funeral. It gives a chance for the family to come together and offer prayers for the dead in the presence of the body of the person who's deceased. Also, the respect for the body of the person who's deceased during the funeral mass. Each Catholic should have a funeral mass, which is the greatest prayer of the Catholic Church that we offer for the repose of the soul of that person who has just left this life, and then the burial itself, a burial in a respectful place in a cemetery. It need not be exclusive to Catholics. It could be a cemetery, so long as it's a respectful, permanent burial place. And then people sometimes ask about, well, what about the option of cremation? So cremation used to be strictly forbidden for Catholics, and really since the early days of the Church, when this was the pagan practice of the Roman pagans would burn their dead because they did not have the same respect for us being made in the image and likeness of God as even the Jews certainly had. And so the Christians pick up this Jewish respect for the body made in the image and likeness of God, as well as it takes on a new dimension as Jesus Christ was laid, his body was laid in the tomb, and he resurrected in the same body that he died. So it's also points to our hope in the resurrection of the body, that in the last days, at the final judgment, our God will raise all to be raised from the dead, the righteous to everlasting life, and the unrighteous to everlasting condemnation. So we respect the body and as the vessel of the Spirit of the person who lived on this earth.
So cremation is okay now, allowed.
There is, so the Code of Canon Law specifically addresses this, saying the Church earnestly recommends that the pious custom of burying the bodies of the deceased be observed. Nevertheless, the Church does not prohibit cremation unless it was chosen for reasons contrary to Christian doctrine. So the Church recognizes there might be legitimate reasons why a family may wish to cremate the body, and yet just ensures that the intention of the person, of the deceased, and of the family taking care of the arrangements is not contrary to what we discussed as the hope in the resurrection of the body.
And now you said that Fairfax Memorial Park is not only just for Catholics, for all denominations, correct?
That is correct. Let me give you some history, John, on the park. At the request of the Richmond Diocese, not the Arlington Diocese, because the Arlington Diocese didn't start until 1974.
That's right.
But the Richmond Diocese, under the direction of Bishop Ireton, put a call out to business owners in Northern Virginia and said, we need a Catholic cemetery. The future in this area, we don't have enough Catholic burial spaces. So the Doherty family, along with some others, got together and formed Calvary Cemetery. And Calvary Cemetery was formed in 1957. The first garden that was built in Calvary Cemetery is called the Garden of the Crucifix. And you can see the bushes where they form a cross. Right?
They're still growing there today.
They're still there today.
And it's the original bushes.
The original bushes.
The original bushes from there, they all lead up to the crucifix.
One of the many, many, many gardens you have over. I'll let you talk about it.
Okay. Well, Fairfax Memory Gardens was opened as a non-sectarian park right next to Calvary Cemetery in 1958. So a year after Calvary Cemetery opened, there was a non-sectarian park that started next door, and that was a Protestant cemetery. It was both memorial parks struggled for the first few years because people moving in. This was farmland we're talking about, so people moved out there. They were young, and there weren't very many of them, so it was a struggle. But in 1976, it was evident that the two cemeteries should merge. So they merged together, and they renamed it Fairfax Memorial Park.
And it's beautiful. Folks, if you ever want to take a little ride, get out there. And the rolling hills, it's not flat like a pool table. It's just rolling hills and gardens. I'm stealing your thunder. I'll let you carry on.
That's okay.
I get so excited about it. Go ahead.
By the time Fairfax Memorial Park was renamed and became both parks together, the entire cemetery was non-sectarian. There are still areas that are traditionally Catholic: the Garden of the Crucifix, Garden of the Blessed Mother, Garden of Prayer, Garden of the Good Shepherd are examples. The cemetery was consecrated in 1957 under the direction of Bishop Ireton. So it is a consecrated cemetery.
And we have the priests and deacons from the Arlington Diocese that are buried right in the Garden of the Crucifix, right along those original bushes. And so folks that come to visit can easily see there because their markers are actually in the form of the cross. They're the only ones that are allowed to have their markers in the shape of the cross. And then we also have some nuns from Marymount University that are buried in the Garden of the Blessed Mother. And you'll see them right in front of the statue of the Blessed Mother, and their markers are also in the form of the cross.
Well, now, would you tell us, our viewing audience, exactly what the address is? Because some people are going to get in their car someday and drive out there maybe on a Sunday afternoon and check this place out.
Well, we hope they do.
What is the address?
The address is 9900 Braddock Road. We're at the corner of Braddock and Burke Station Road.
Burke Station Road and Braddock intersect, yeah.
And they're welcome to come anytime during the daylight hours. They don't need to check in with us, so they're welcome to just come and drive.
And drive right through.
And stop, and maybe they'll find their most favorite priest there. Father Martin from Nativity, the Church of Nativity, is
Isn't
recently
Judge
buried
Scalia
there.
there too?
Judge Scalia is
Scalia's
also
there.
buried there. Yes, so they will see these. We thought it might be helpful if when families, we have found from our experience that when families have a death, that they come across some terms that maybe they're not as aware of.
Okay.
And so we thought maybe we would provide them with some definitions, see if we can inform them a little bit so that they'll be a little more comfortable when they have to deal with this, and preferably be able to deal with it a little ahead of time rather than right at the time of death.
Okay.
You'll see we have notes, and so bear with me if I look down at my notes. We have a lot of material we were hoping to cover, and kind of are afraid that we'll forget something. So bear with me. The most common term that people hear is traditional burial. And that's what, as you say, folks used to be laid out in their funeral, in their parlor, in their home. They would be in the casket or placed in their casket when they're getting ready for burial. And we have some photos that show where once the casket has been chosen at the funeral home, once they come to the cemetery for the burial, they are placed, the casket itself is placed into an outer burial. We require that it be in an outer burial container that's made out of concrete.
Concrete, yes. Mm-hmm.
And you'll see there is a photo that shows if you don't use an outer burial, what the ground looks like. It's very bumpy,
Yeah.
and it's
That's the photo on the left.
correct.
Yeah.
It's the one that's not
Oh, I
not
see.
very well kept. Let's put it that way. Then you have a liner, which is the same thing as a vault, which is the third photo that you'll see.
Mm-hmm.
All those, the liner and the vault, are basically concrete rectangles that have a lid that the casket will go into. The difference between the two is that the vault has a seal and the liner does not.
Mm-hmm.
So the vault is designed to protect the casket from the elements up to 75 years.
Mm-hmm.
So once the body and the casket and the liner are all lowered down to the ground, then that helps to keep the pressure from the earth from making everything collapse. And that's a traditional burial. That's what they normally use. One of the trends in a traditional burial is you'll see personalization. And so we have a beautiful photo of a vault where they have taken the actual photo of the deceased and put that on the lid of the vault. And it's a wonderful way to be able to just express your love for that person
In other words,
in a
you're
different
saying
way.
that I could have my picture on the stone, on the wow.
Yeah, I think in your case it would have to be with your favorite plants. That might be around your photo.
How about that? Yes.
The other thing that we thought might be helpful to know about is about perpetual care. Many people ask us, are they going to be charged a maintenance fee when they purchase their site? And that's a great question, because there are some cemeteries that have not planned ahead. Even cemeteries don't always plan ahead. And so the Doherty family very wisely set up a trust fund. It's called a Perpetual Care Trust Fund. And when a site is purchased, 10% of that price actually goes into a Perpetual
And to
Care
care in the
Trust
future.
Fund. Mm-hmm.
So that when the cemetery is full, there's a way to keep it maintained.
Exactly.
You know what I like about it when you go over there, folks? You don't see all these monuments of this way and that way and tilting, and this one's big, that one's small, that one's wide, that one's this way. It's almost like a lawn, because they're all in plaques. It's beautiful, isn't it?
It is. It is, and that was by design, because the family wanted it to look more like a park.
Yeah.
Mr. Doherty, when he started it, said, you know, cemeteries really are for the living. And so he wanted more of a park-like atmosphere, something more peaceful, something that people could come, remember their loved one, relax for a little bit, and then get back on with their life. And so they felt that the bronze markers, the flat bronze markers, are something that would be a way to keep that park-like
Did
atmosphere.
you bring a sample of one? Ron, do you have something?
I do. I have one. This one
hey.
here is for. Tell us what that.
This is for a crypt plate.
Turn
Now,
this
we
way.
have both above
Joe.
ground and below ground options for full casket burials. And so this particular one is for above ground. It actually goes on a mausoleum crypt.
Oh,
And we have others that are larger, and we have some photos of some other markers that are for in-ground. But it's a nice, simple way, but they're actually custom designed for each person.
oh yeah. Oh, that's heavy. Wow. That's heavier than I ever thought it would.
They're hand-cast bronze. It takes 27 people to make that marker.
Really?
It's quite a big design.
Very nice. This is
Process.
only one of many, many, many I saw. And if you go over to their office, they have these, the wall is covered with samples. So if you look at, I like that one, no, I like that one. And your wife and you can argue over which one is the best one. Whatever. There you go. But what about the, and if I can pronounce it right, the columbaria? Yeah.
Columbarium.
Yeah,
Yep.
talk about that a little bit.
That
That's
are for
the ashes.
cremation, for placement of the cremains above ground. And then you can also do cremation burials in ground too. And in fact, we have an ad that we thought might be rather fun to watch. And it's one that we showed recently in the movie theater.
Really?
And it talks
Can we
about.
show that here now?
That would be
good.
great.
Okay, let's watch it.
It's so nice that so many people are here. My family and so many friends. What a great memorial service. Well, this should be interesting. Uh-oh. My son told me he would do something with my ashes. As usual, he put it off. Well, it's been 5 years now, and here I still sit. I always meant to talk to someone about a space at Fairfax Memorial Park where my family could visit to remember me. But like my son, I just kept putting it off. I guess procrastination runs in the family.
For generations, Fairfax Memorial Park Cemetery, located on Braddock Road in Fairfax, has helped families choose a final, respectable resting place, both in-ground and above ground. Contact us today about planning ahead and relieving your loved ones of the burden. Ask for our free Survivor's Guide so your family will know the plans you've made.
Now look at me. No telling where I'll end up in 10 or 20 years from now. Hopefully not in a garage sale with the rest of this stuff.
Wow, what a commercial that was. I'm telling you, putting Grandpa in the, up in the attic or wherever. Yeah. I would like mine spread around on the farm someplace. By the way, you can't do that. You can't take these ashes and spread them on the farm or down around the Potomac River or whatever, right?
That's right. The church teaches cremains should be treated the same as a full body,
Right.
final, respectful resting place. And you know that 20 to 30% of our burials now are cremains. They're
Is that
urns.
right?
Yeah. And we have ways to, we have in-ground and above-ground burial options at Fairfax Memorial Park. Here's a couple of terms that you may not be familiar with. Columbariums are buildings that are designed to hold urns that have cremated remains.
Mm-hmm.
They're usually a structure, up and down. And then also a mausoleum usually is more like a wall, and we can hold full body caskets in the mausoleum. We also are able to hold urns in our mausoleums. And there's a couple more terms. I know we're starting to run out of time, so I want to just throw these in there. One thing that we haven't mentioned yet is additional interment rights. We can actually have, in-ground sites, we can have up to 4 burials in an in-ground site, as long as not more than one of them is casket. We can have, in some areas, we can have 2 caskets.
In layers?
In some areas of the park, we can do 2
layers.
caskets, 2 layers.
Oh, okay.
But if some of them are urns, we can do up to 4. There is an additional cost. We have to, when you buy a site, it includes 1 right of interment, and then you can purchase additional rights of interment and it's at a discounted price. So.
Now, I'm going to go into one thing here, and I'm not going to go into dollars and cents, but if somebody wanted to get started, do you have a program that they can put so much down and say, look, so much a month, and we'll work that out until it's, in other words, planning ahead. That's the key word, plan ahead, so that when it does happen, you don't say, oh, man, we don't even have a place to put them.
John, you know, that's a really key element that I think many families don't even realize how important that is.
To plan ahead.
It's helpful only because when you've had a death, and I would venture to say every single one of us have had to deal with the death of somebody that we cared about, you're kind of in a fog when that happens. And here you are making really important decisions when you're also mourning this person.
Right.
And so it's really helpful if you can do anything. I mean, it may be as simple as picking your site. That's always helpful because then it's one phone call, you're done. Sometimes it's picking your site and setting up your marker, designing your marker.
Right.
Those are all things that will help you that when the time comes, it's not as difficult. You can make a phone call and you can say, all right.
And you'll have a program. Do you have a program that, like I started off to say?
The more you do in advance, the better it is.
And you can set that up and they can pay it off and they don't have to have it all like that.
At the time of death, you do. But if
but I mean
pre-plan,
ahead of time. That's what I'm talking about.
If you pre-plan, we have different payment options up to 2 years in payments.
That's very
which helps a lot.
That's great.
You know, some of our generation, some of us are in that baby boomer generation, and statistics are showing that baby boomers are turning 65 at a rate of 10,000 people a day. They're aging rather quickly. And personally, I understand that. So the sooner a person plans ahead, the less stressful it is for the rest of their family that are left behind. This baby boomer generation is also known as the sandwich generation. We have our aging parents because we're all living longer. We have our children that we're raising, and then we're also usually working. And it's very stressful to go through your life trying to take care of, in essence, 3 generations. So any amount of planning ahead that a person can do is going to reduce that stress level for whomever is left behind.
The worst time to do it is at the time of death.
Yeah.
You're in shock and you're not thinking clearly, you're under pressure. The best time to do it is when there's no rush, no pressure.
Well, I went over there, and when I was over there, they take you in a special room, folks, where it's private, and they sit down and they'll give you a cup of coffee or whatever and talk. And they're very family oriented. And family first is sort of their motto.
Mm-hmm.
That's right.
Huh?
It is,
Family
actually.
Hey, we got about 3 minutes left. What would you like to add to this program on the Fairfax Memorial Park? This book I'd like you to talk about too.
Well, we would like to invite you, and we would like to invite your viewers to take part in a couple of activities. One, if they would like to have, this is a history book of the Fairfax Memorial Park. So if they would like to have a history book of it, please go to our website, which I know is on the screen, and just email us and ask to have this mailed to you. You can also stop in at the office, and we have them sitting on the table, ready and waiting for anyone who would like to have the history. You'll even see this is 3rd generation owned by the same Doherty family. And you'll see a photo in there of our current president, and his first job was mowing the lawn. So you'll see a photo of him in there, mowing the lawn.
And that's a grandson?
He is.
It's a grandson? I met him over there, yes.
Yes.
We shook hands, yes.
Yes, indeedy. Yep. And then we'd also like to invite you and anyone who might like to come. Every Memorial Day, we have a Mass. It's at 11 a.m. Every Memorial Day. It's an outdoor Mass in the Garden of Crucifix. And recently, we had a Mass that had as many as 600 people that attended. So it's wonderful. It's a great opportunity to gather together, have a short Mass in beautiful weather, and then go on with our lives for the rest of the year. So please do come and join us, and please let the viewers know.
I want to cover one more thing before we close here, and that is there's a funeral park, but then there's a funeral parlor. That's separate.
That's
Would you
correct.
tell our viewing audience that there is a separation there. It's on the same property, but go ahead.
And it's owned by the same family.
Oh,
It is
okay.
owned by the Doherty family. In the early 2000s, they had actually, prior to that, known there was a need for a funeral home in that area.
And so they,
And so they applied to Fairfax County for the permission to have a funeral home built. And after much planning and preparation, the funeral home was built there. And I have to say, it's owned by the same family. Virginia law requires that it be two separate corporations. Probably you'll need to have them on the show sometime too.
I think I will. Hey, listen, the time is flying. Thank you, Father, for coming on. Thank you, Karen.
pleasure.
Thank you, Ron, very much for coming on. You've all learned a lot. Folks, I got to wrap it up real quick. You know, we're all living on this planet Earth. We have nowhere else to go, but when we do, I hope we all go to the right place. But while we're living on this earth, let us all take time to be a little more faithful and understanding and honest with each other, a little more loving and charitable, compassionate, respectful, and peaceful. Every day in our work and in our play. And on that note, I'd like to say God bless and God bless. Thank you. The funding for this program was made possible by a grant from Fairfax Memorial Park, family owned since 1957. Fairfax Memorial Park serves all, providing you a choice of family crypts, mausoleums, and columbariums. On 128 acres, there are 12 beautiful memorial gardens. The vision for Fairfax Memorial Park is family first, plan ahead, and give great service. For more information, their number to call is 703-323-5202.